All right, we're live.
Well, I guess.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. This is a city council workshop. Today's Monday, December 23rd. It's 5:13 p.m. On the table, we have Councilor Fournier, Councilor Dean, Councilor Trumbull, Councilor Fish, Councilor Hawes, Councilor Mallor, myself, Council Chair Pelletier, Councilor Beck, and Councilor Leonard. Full house tonight. First thing on the agenda is the encampment update.
Madam Chair, I believe I have a conflict of interest. My wife is the executive director of Dignity First, and they have sent in a letter of intent to the city on that land where the encampment sits, and therefore I don't believe I can continue having conversations or voting on this issue.
I would move the council back as a conflict of interest.
Second.
We have a motion. We have a second discussion on this item. Okay, I think we need a roll call vote. Councilor Leonard?
Yes.
Councilor Beck does not.
Yes.
Councilor Hawes? Yes. Councilor Fish?
Yes.
Councilor Trumbull?
Yes.
Councilor Dean?
Yes.
Councilor Fournier?
Yes.
I'm a yes as well. Well, you are recused.
All right.
Thank you.
The cookies out there.
Yeah, there's cookies back there. Not a bad night to have a conflict of interest.
No.
All right, we're joined by City Manager Deb Thorey and by Director of Public Health, Jen Gunderman. And first item on the agenda is the encampment update.
Yes. So as you may recall, we did delay the final closure for individuals who were fully engaged with their support providers and their support partners. We have continued to message that. We have once again refinalized the by name list. That by name list was closed as of December 12th. So for anybody who was engaged with the two primary outreach work teams, we know who those individuals are and that their outreach workers continue to support them. We did this because we were awaiting 41 units of supportive housing to come online. We continue to hear that that is closing in. I believe all of the documents have now been approved by Maine Housing. So we do expect that to roll out shortly. We are working with all of our community partners to identify who would be good individuals to put applications into that. It was never our intention that everybody within the area of the encampment would be relocated to those 41 units of permanent supportive housing. Depending on somebody's need, that may or may not be a good fit. And what we want to do is to ensure that the success of that housing project. So we've been working with others who are working in the community as well to create that movement within the homelessness response system so that we can get some movement through transitional and shelter. So we've got a lot of good energy coming together around that. We also began last week, we started identifying those spots that were vacant, made sure they were vacant, and we began removing unutilized areas and clearing up any debris. Earlier today, we removed 5 roll-offs. Our public works crew did. So you should see a big improvement in the appearance. Now that we've done that, what we'll be doing, we'll be augmenting now with city staff after the fact. People were aware that the closure date was December 31st. If you were not engaged, that still stands. So we'll be using other city staff to go out off cycle and connect with those folks and see what their exit plan is, because they will not be allowed to remain. We do recognize at times we may have to involve law enforcement in order to do some of that. We will working with those who are going into housing. One of the primary goals is to ensure that any items that they have in the encampment are removed at the time that they enter into housing. I can tell you that we have 2 good stories. We have a couple of folks who the vast majority of people who've been working in this space would say were really deeply entrenched and unable to kind of move. One of them leased up last week and the other one is leased up and going into housing on January 1st. So that effort has paid off, that concentrated effort by our community partners, and we are beginning to see people believe and continue to maintain hope.
Can we
Um,
pause there for a
yeah.
minute, Counselor Trumbull?
Yeah, quite, you just talked about keeping people's connected. If they've got a place to go, we're gonna keep them connected with it. So always we've got somebody that we're gonna remove from there.
Yep.
I mean, my concern when we did this before, and when we're doing this now, that we just, it doesn't seem to any of us probably that there's a lot of material things there, but to them, it's everything they've got.
It is.
How are we keeping people connected with it? I mean, we got totes and we're keeping them someplace in storage so they can
Yep.
get this stuff when they need it. How are we keeping them connected?
So for right now, what I'm talking about is when people are moving into units. We're making sure and connecting them with laundry facilities and such so that they can take their clean items in. What we're asking them to do is you can't leave your tent, you can't leave that thing, you know, a structure in essence that can be taken over by somebody else. So those are the items that are being removed. The items that we cleaned up here recently, we posted the areas for 5 days.
Yeah, a number of.
5 days, we went and spoke to everybody and said, if you have items here that you need. Or that you want to retrieve, please do so. But to your other question about when people are asked to leave. We know, for example, there's another individual who's pretty entrenched in that area. And who was again considering seeking some medical treatment. And one of that individual's concern is, what about my items?
Mhm.
So we have secured totes.
Yeah.
Jenna's finalizing sort of a possessions management, because that is something that happens. We're working with the both. All of the warming centers have been willing to be partners in this with us as well, so.
Okay.
yeah.
Is there like a process where they go through it with each other and inventory, so they don't come back and they listen? I gave you this and I'm not getting this back, or?
So they haven't gotten that far in,
Yeah.
but our desire is they'll get items cleaned, anything that they need to keep. There may be photographs, there may be paper documentation that they require, make sure that it's all settled. And we'll find a way to seal the units,
Right,
so that people understand, once it's sealed, we're good.
thanks.
We do continue to struggle with some of our outreach staffing, but, and transportation is a challenge at times. So sometimes we have a lot of folks now who are transporting people to appointments, to apartment viewings, et cetera. But it still is an opportunity to engage with that individuals. As I said, we're gonna start working with those who aren't on the by name list and start telling them, you can't be here and what's your exit plan to get out. And we'll work through that. As we sat last week, we have 45 households within the encampment. 23 or more than half of those individuals have a voucher or will be housed as a partner in a household. So there's housing resource support, at least half of those as far as financial assistance. So now you can imagine what we're really working on is identifying units and opportunity to move people inside. Some other, and I know that this got a little wonky, I think a couple of you mentioned, just some of the highlights since October 10th. We've got, 15 people have gone into housing. We've got 4 people who have signed leases and are preparing to move into units. 5 people have moved into shelter. 2 people have been reconnected with family, and we've got 13 other individuals who have left the encampment under other circumstances. So we are beginning to see, but I will say last week when they were up, we came across an individual and she'd just gotten there. And she had relocated, it appears, from another place. So we're immediately going, no, we can't be here. You can't be located in this space. This is a space designated for clearing.
Mhm.
And we're working to get them reconnected in a different way, but it won't be there. So that work continues.
Thank
I've
you.
got 2 other quick updates.
Yeah.
I was up there today, while Public Works was doing the cleaning with Rob, our outreach person, and because of the posting and all the time that we gave, we didn't have a single incident of anyone being concerned. We were really respectful to where one person's stuff ended and the other one began. We went through all the tents that were what looked to us as abandoned to confirm that they were. And if anything, what happened is we told people that if you have stuff that you want to get rid of, throw it into the area that's been marked and we'll clean that. So today in the brutal cold, we saw people like getting rid of some of the things that they've been carrying around and taking that opportunity. So I think it went really well. I think that the cleared areas show not just a sanitation improvement, but also just a respect of the land improvement. And I think people have taken that cleanup seriously. And one other thing that I just wanted to mention in terms of the follow through, I think one of the things that, while I was not here for Valley Ave, what I heard was that One of the challenges that once people were housed, they were on their own and they didn't have that continued support services. Been working really hard with outreach staff to how does that transition move on to case management? And we'll be having our housing navigator start on Monday. And one of his roles is going to be to make sure that warm handoff happens between outreach and support. And for those people who don't have that case management yet, he'll fill in a little bit of that role until that happens. And then the other piece is I've met with a few of the healthcare entities in the area to talk about what does access to healthcare continue to look like, because a lot of people are receiving street outreach services in the encampment. And once they get housed, we want to make sure that as many barriers are down for them to be able to continue access healthcare. So I think there's a lot of warm handoffs in a lot of ways, whether it's possessions or services or other resources. Not to say that there aren't still concerns and challenges, but I think just thinking about how things are being done a little bit differently than the last time something happened.
Questions? Councilor Miller.
Some time ago, I asked for, and I believe someone else asked for a list of the agencies that were working within the encampment. Run across the top of the page, not difficult. And down the edge of the page, we asked for numbers, 1 through whatever number of people you're working with. Not specifically to identify the people, because that's not a concern. My concern is that every number that's listed over here is located somewhere across the board, and I don't see that yet. And I know it was brought up at a recent meeting, and I'm concerned because this was asked a long time ago. And it hasn't come forth, and I don't understand what the problem is. You know who you're working with, and you know what groups are working with people. Why is that information not available?
I think that's something that we'll take back. I can tell you that every minute is spent in a lot of effort. And so we'll go back and see what that looks like.
And it was the culmination of that final by name list, which allowed us, because I did see
Right.
that. But yes, we'll get that.
But
for
the
you.
concern I have is not, as I said,
Yeah.
not by name. I don't
No,
care
no,
who
no,
they
but
are.
we would just
But
drop
yeah,
that
I
off.
understand it, but my concern is that of these 50 people that were in the encampment, how many of them really received services and how many of them didn't? And we don't know that because you can't tell us. So I don't know where we're getting the best bounce for our buck is what I'm looking at.
Other questions? Councilor Pitt.
Do we have, a strategy of, you identified someone that's come in since we've announced the closure? And so is there a specific strategy or monitoring system that we have in place to keep that going?
Yeah, we actually was able to execute it right in that moment. We were up posting and we encountered somebody who was kind of moving into the space from another space in the city. And it just so happened that our city outreach worker was with me at the time. We immediately engaged with this person, immediately recognized that they weren't part of the by name list. And our city outreach worker said, I will work with you to figure out where is the next best place for you. So make sure that they were in coordinated entry, make sure so that happened like in the moment. So our outreach worker doesn't do case management like the other entities. Our outreach worker is we're linking to those resources very quickly. And so he was able to take that person on right in the moment.
Do we have once it's closed, then what's gonna happen? What's going to prevent another influx of a big, encampment that we, if we have an encampment, because we do, there will be homeless and we probably, it's kind of good to know where they are to help to continue with outreach, but at the same time, to close it and then kind of turn around and forget about it, it'll explode again and be out of control again. So do we have a strategic plan about once it's closed, how we're going to proceed from there?
We would treat it very much like we did Valley Avenue. We're gonna post it, we're gonna say the area is closed, and we'll routinely monitor it. It's no different than what we've done along Valley Ave.
And I think that's where the 19 strategies that we referenced come into place. One of the strategies is to have a use for the land after. So that gives an opportunity for the.
Okay, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the city manager search. Can you go ahead?
Yeah, so, following the announcement, we went ahead and pulled together and contacted several different entities, to undertake the search to, look for your next city manager. We had, 4 responses, all of which are attached. I will say that we had a really close connection, if you will, to Maine Municipal. Unfortunately, they wouldn't be able to start until sometime in March. I will say also that all of these entities are listed on the ICMA website as individuals who provide recruitment services. They generally all include very much a similar work plan, working with council and the staff to determine essential or desired skills. They'll do the advertising, the initial screening, scheduling interviews, background checks, contract negotiations, etc. Though, as we noted, the lowest price is MMA, but they can't start until March. So our recommendation is to award the contract to the second lowest bidder, Eaton Peabody. It's actually their point person on this is Don Garish. He's a longtime former city and town manager in Maine for over 37 years. He really does understand and have great knowledge of Maine, and he'd be really beneficial.
I'm sorry, Debbie, can I interrupt you here? Do we need to have
Oh, yes.
Counselor Beck recuse himself from this conversation?
I
Or
think
do
we
we
should
need
have
to
that
discuss
conversation
that?
about whether or not. So, Don Garish is employed by Eaton Peabody. Eaton Peabody has been engaged by Dignity First, as it relates to their lease. So the attorneys do have to disclose that. So the issue 1 is whether or not you believe Counselor Beck may or may want to consider whether or not Counselor Beck has a conflict on this particular.
Is this particular attorney working?
No. No.
Counselor Haas?
By Mr. Garish's own admission, he does nothing with the attorneys while he's doing the searches.
That's correct.
So in my mind, if he's not dealing with the attorneys, it doesn't matter who those attorneys are representing. Sooner or later, we all could have ties with somebody in town that's in the legal field that might be doing something with someone else. But he states that he does not deal with the attorneys for any reason. So I have no reason to think he's not being upfront with us. So I would say, no, he does not, in this instance, have a conflict.
Counselor Leonard?
I would concur with Councillor Haas's point, but I would also additionally add, if the majority of the council doesn't agree with that idea, I think it would not be a good idea to not involve a recently elected councillor, to not be part of the search for manager. So if there is a conflict of interest here, I would hypothesize a motion to not consider Eaton Peabody Consulting Group because of that conflict of interest. I think their conflict would outweigh Councillor Beck's conflict of interest there.
Thank you. Other discussion? Counselor Tremble?
I guess on this one, I could agree, I don't think there is, but I would just say that I've had some conversations and work from Eaton Peabody in the last few months, so I never thought it was a conflict, but just to put it out there.
I too have had many deals with Eaton people. So, I don't know this gentleman, and I agree that I don't feel that Counselor Beck would have conflict.
I do think we should take a motion and a vote. Or,
So you only have, you have a motion that there is a conflict,
okay,
and I have yet to hear one.
Do we have to give a motion?
nope.
Nope.
Okay, moving
right.
on, thank you.
Yep, and while we're on the topic and similar to what Councilor Hawes has stated, it's not unusual when you're using an external attorney, that there is that potential, and the city itself has waived that there is a conflict depending on what section of a legal firm we're dealing with. So as long as we're not negotiating against ourselves, it's been pretty common practice for us to do that. As I said, Don Garish has 37 years of experience. He really does have a great understanding of Maine, what's beneficial. He's actually done some work for Bangor in the past, doing some workshop sessions. I think he's been an arbitrator for us. He's very well balanced. And if you look, he's actually got a significant resume of placements throughout Maine. So that is the staff recommendation.
Questions and discussion?
We need a motion to move forward.
I would like to.
Yep.
I would move staff recommendation.
Second,
We have a motion and a second to move forward with staff recommendation. Is there any doubt? See none. Thank you. Oh, next item on the agenda is city manager updates.
Yes, so, many of you may have seen over the weekend, that we believe, with the help of many other members of Congress and Senator Collins, we have actually seen a repeal of the windfall elimination program provision and the government, pension offset. And what you may not know as to how beneficial that is for the city of Bangor retirees, current employees and future employees. We have a number of employees who have either themselves or through a marital relationship participated in Social Security. And when they get to the point where they're drawing a retirement benefit from the city, their Social Security benefit has been reduced in the neighborhood of 30 to 40%. So I can tell you that I've had some retirees or some employees who worked later than they wanted to because many times they were a surviving spouse. And that Social Security was enabling them to be able to live. And when they finally took their pension, it really did create a financial hardship for them. In addition, I will say it no longer creates an inequity and a disparity from choosing public service as your profession. So I think it's yet another tool in our toolbox for recruitment and retention of municipal employees. So that's I think it was when I reached out to the senator's office, she said she's been fighting that for 20 years. So that was a big win for municipal employees over the weekend. Let's see, last year, you may recall, we had a conversation about joining the Mayor's Coalition. And that was not included in the budget. We have that opportunity again, to Councilor Leonard's point, to all of your points about deepening relationships. I think it's a good opportunity to do that. I did get the information and there's $3,200 in the budget for their membership. It would be $3,900, but one of the other memberships will come in lower. So, unless there's concerns, I am gonna go ahead and register you all as being part of the Mayor's Coalition. All right.
Yeah, I don't see any concerns.
Good. At a committee meeting last week, we were talking about the ball drop off Pickering Square. The fencing will be moved around that site to ensure we have adequate space for that. So I just wanted to make sure that people were aware of that. Earlier today, I sent you all, and I did it as a blind copy so that there would be no online discussion amongst counselors. I gave you a draft of your priority statement based on your priority setting session and your subsequent workshops. So if you have feedback or if I've misinterpreted something, please let me know. I also sent an overview of legislative priorities. That legislative priorities, just for the public in general, it's pretty clear to me that regardless of the advocacy group or the professional association, the biggest concern for everybody is property tax relief. And so I provided you with a summary of positions from a number of professional organizations, just to ask you to look at it. And if there's anything else that you can think of, and we'll compile that so we can come back and have that discussion publicly. I'll also be asking the department heads for their professional associations positions. And I'll be reaching out to our legislative delegation to hopefully get a meeting scheduled with them January 7th or 8th. Cloture is the 10th, so it makes it pretty darn close. But in advance of that, I'm also gonna ask the legislative delegation to provide us the items of importance that they had planned to advance in the coming session, so that we can have a real good discussion about those items.
Quick question. When do you want the responses by? End of the
And
week?
if I can get them next week, that'd be great. Speaking of next week, it is the 5th Monday of the month, one of the wonderful things that happens, so there will be no meetings next week. I know it breaks everybody's heart. That was that. Then I got that. Then I got that. And I think I hit all my updates, unless you have anything else you'd like to ask.
Yes, Counselor Trumbull.
Well, one thing, you talked about no meetings next week, and one thing we did with our ARPA money last week was, or recently, we allocated some of the groups buying the trailer park. And they got $1 million, I think, from the state, 500 from us. They're asking the county for money. The county meets Monday, virtually, 9 o'clock, Monday the 30th. And they're gonna take care of the remaining ARPA money, and that's on the table. So I think if people are interested in that, they might want to advocate to the county on how they spend that. I'm not involved in that, about, I don't start till next year, but that's a discussion on the 30th.
And I'll just add to that, I spoke with the county administrator earlier today, just to check in on a couple of things. And the county administrator specifically asked, and while we've said we would consider it, we've identified the sources. I think it'll take another step before we actually complete all that paperwork, because we've got the CDBG portion and our proportion, but I did share kind of the premise behind the council support, so.
Other questions for the city manager? Okay. Someone like to make a motion?
I move we go into executive session, 1 MRSA section 4056D, consultation with attorney. And executive session 1 MRSA 4056A, personnel matter, personnel committee appointments.
Second.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second. Roll call vote. Counselor Fournier.
Yes.
Counselor Dean.
Yes.
Counselor Trumbull.
Yes.
Counselor Fish.
Yes.
Counselor Hawes.
Yes.
Counselor Mello.
Yes.
Counselor Beck.
Yes.
Counselor Leonard.
Yes.
I'm a yes. It is unanimous. We're in